Hi, I'm Ashley, and today I'm doing a time-lapse tutorial-ish of a farm with this kind of like time-lapse photograph looking sky. And so I started with just the brightest colors here in the sky with that bright yellow, and then went in and added some just streaky, loose pink or rose, whatever color that is, I can't remember. And so this is all done very wet on wet. So I completely wet up the background first and then went in with these colors to get that natural loose bleed and just gradually, layer by layer, though it's still wet on wet, adding in deeper and deeper colors and letting it blend naturally. And you can tell that there's just a ton of water on the page right now. So I even mop some of it up with a paper towel and just go in with each of those colors and deepen certain areas and continue making it look like with that streaky feel. The biggest point there in the sky is just preserving those highlighted spaces. And then for the ground, I went very simple with just basically like a green field look. And I wanted to keep my brush strokes kind of loose and streaky, kind of like the sky, but also looking like there's this perspective of these rows of crops going kind of toward the back left a little bit of this painting. And then just go in loosely with some green for the trees in the background, and that is also still wet on wet in the sky. So you're going to see some bleeds and some softening of those background trees. And that was done to keep the background soft. And then the foreground is kind of the stronger, more precise look. So after letting that dry completely, I started the barn. And so I'm just sketching in the barn with kind of this light red color and then filling it in basically. And the barn is really just to give this landscape some context. So again, that helps with the field. You can tell that it's a field and that it has that perspective of rows kind of going back toward the barn. But the barn is not super detailed or precise or anything. It's very loosely sketched, which is why I didn't do it with pencil first or try to make it precise. Just kind of sketched it with some watercolor and then went in and added kind of deeper and deeper colors, really just focusing on shadow and highlight in the building itself. So after I kind of get the first wash on the barn, I go back into the foliage, and now this is wet on dry, and just add a little bit of texture to those trees. And that just, again, helps to create some depth. And then same thing with the field. So just keeping in mind that perspective of kind of everything heading back toward the barn, keeping the area that's more in the foreground, so that front left area, and keeping that a little bit more precise and detailed so you can see kind of the definition of the rows in that area. But as you go farther off to the right and farther back toward the barn, it's looser. So that just creates that perspective. And so it's helpful to remember always to keep more details in whatever is in the foreground, because that's how our vision works, right? We can see the details up close. As we get farther away, we see less detail. So then after kind of getting another layer there, the barn dried mostly. So I added some deeper shadows to the barn, kind of defined the roof line, just focusing again on those shadowed areas. So the sun's hitting the roof. So everything where there's that overhang is going to be more shaded, and then lifting out some of the color to create highlights on that roof, which I'm assuming is some sort of metal roof on this barn. Again, this is not a precise painting in any way. And then just going in and adding some shadows to the trees. So again, looking at kind of where would there be some shadows, and definitely toward the bottom of the trees, there's going to be shadows. And then I chose kind of a side to define in between the trees. And again, just going in with deeper and deeper colors on the barn to create that depth and shadow. So contrast is going to be your best friend when you're looking at paintings in watercolor. If everything has a similar value, then it's going to be very flat, but building up those shadows creates that depth. So after getting the basic land part of the landscape in, I went back into the sky and just kind of defined a little bit more of that darkness and lifted out a little bit where I wanted it a little bit lighter. And then again, just continuing to build depth to the barn here. And then I wanted to add just some small details on the front of the barn. So added with just basically a black-ish color here, some windows and the doors, and just created some basic shapes for that. So just rectangles of darkness basically. And that creates that illusion of detail on the barn. And then again, just going in and kind of deepening up some of the shadows, lifting up for some of the highlights. Where that, I think it's like a silo on the side of the barn that would be casting a shadow onto the barn. So created that shadow. And then just kind of blending out the bottom a little bit and deepening up some of those colors. As it dries, it kind of fades. So sometimes you need to go back in and add some more depth. And then same thing with the trees. I just felt like it was all kind of blending into each other with the colors of the trees being the same color as the ground basically. So I just went in with a much stronger green that's much darker and kind of went over it. And then created some directional splatters there on the foreground to create kind of an illusion of leaves and whatever this crop might be. And then blending just some of them out so that they weren't just super precise dots, I guess. And then once I did that, added some more, and that was more wet on wet. So those splatters kind of bleed out a little bit. And then remove the tape to visualize the final results here. And it's always satisfying to pull that tape off and get a nice clean line. So here's the completed, I don't really know what to name this, but here's my completed painting, and I hope you enjoyed the process. Please subscribe to my channel, check out other videos for more content. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.